Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Hello and welcome to a new episode of our program Newsroom Live. Today's edition will tackle a variety of local, regional and also international news with a focus, of course, on the latest developments in the Gaza Strip. I'm Amal Mukhtar. I have the pleasure to be with you until the end of this hour. This is a short break and I'm going to be back with you. Welcome back. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi held talks with visiting Armenian Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan in Cairo on Tuesday. Speaking during a joint press conference following the talks, President al-Sisi expressed his keenness on boosting ties with Armenia in various domains. The president noted that the talks tackled means of cementing ties between the two countries, notably trade exchange. The head of state also said that the latest developments in Gaza topped the agenda of the talks. In this regard, the two sides stressed the necessity of reaching a ceasefire in the besieged strip and achieving calm in the West Bank. For his part, Pashinyan expressed keenness on boosting ties with Egypt in different fields. The Armenian premier said that the talks discussed the necessity of achieving peace in the Caucasus. He also expressed regret events in the Gaza and the falling of thousands of victims and called for a ceasefire in Gaza and for allowing humanitarian aid into the strip. He also called for settling the Palestinian cause according to a two-state solution. Earlier on Tuesday, President al-Sisi received Lieutenant General Nasser bin Hamad Al Khalifa, the Bahraini National Security Advisor, Commander of the Royal Guard and Secretary General of the Higher Defense Council. Presidential spokesman Councillor Ahmed Fahmy said that during the meeting, Lieutenant General Nasser conveyed an oral message from the Bahraini monarch lauding ties between the two countries. He said the message hailed efforts exerted by Cairo to confront regional challenges and the repercussions on the local and foreign stages. It praised cooperation between the two sides in various fields. The meeting tackled developments in Gaza and the Egyptian efforts to calm the situation. Both sides reiterated the need for an immediate ceasefire and for allowing sufficient humanitarian assistance into the enclave. They also stressed the need to contain the situation to prevent expanding the conflict and destabilizing the region. The Bahraini official lauded the Egyptian airdropping of aid, saying it guarantees reaching the biggest number of Palestinians in the north, as well as the entry of assistance from the Rafah border crossing. The meeting also attended by Intelligence Chief General Abbas Kamel. Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry held on Monday a joint press conference with visiting Dutch counterpart Hanke Brunies Slaughter following the meeting in the new administrative capital. Shoukry said that the meeting discussed means of boosting political coordination between the two countries on several regional and international issues of mutual concern. Shoukry added that the talks tackled joint cooperation in various domains, including the field of clean energy. On the situation in Gaza, the top diplomat reiterated that the talks focused on opening borders to facilitate the path of humanitarian aid to the Strip. For her part, Slaughter said that Egypt is an important market for investments in the region and stressed keenness on fostering bilateral cooperation in the fields of climate and intelligent methods of agriculture. Slaughter also expressed concern on any military attacks on the Palestinian Rafah in south of Gaza and keenness on releasing hostages in the Strip. Foreign Minister Sameh Shukri on Monday asserted that an immediate ceasefire and a truce in the Gaza Strip should be enforced before the month of Ramadan in order to allow a flow of humanitarian aid and relief stuff in sufficient amounts. Meeting in Cairo with the senior UN humanitarian and reconstruction coordinator for the Gaza Strip, Siege Kag, the top diplomat also deplored systematic attempts to derail work by the UNRWA agency in support of the Palestinian refugees. The UN official appreciated the important and pivotal role Egypt is undertaking since the beginning in order to push for a truce, defuse the crises, and to provide and facilitate aid to the Gaza Strip. Upon directives by President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, Egyptian Air Forces, in cooperation with Emirati Air Forces, airdropped tons of humanitarian aids into Gaza in an attempt to ease the suffering of Gazans. This came as Egyptian active efforts continue to reach a ceasefire in Gaza and secure sustainable access of aid into the Palestinian Strip. Egypt's permanent representative of the UN, Ambassador Osama Abdel Khaliq, called the Security Council to act in solidarity with the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees, UNRWA, expressing Egypt's support to the agency and its employees. During a session held by the UN General Assembly on UNRWA, Abdel Khaliq condemned the attempt of impeding the work of the agency and calls for its replacement. He also stressed that the UN extended the work of the agency till the end of June of 2026. Egypt's representative also demanded the necessity of the fully respecting the work of the agency to guarantee the credibility of the United Nations. Hamas negotiators stayed in Cairo for a third day of ceasefire talks on Tuesday in an attempt to halt the fighting in the Gaza Strip in time for the Muslim fasting month of Ramadan, free Israeli hostages and stave off famine. A 40-day ceasefire in the Israeli aggression would allow some hostages captured by Palestinian resistance group Hamas to go free, while aid to Gaza would be increased and families able to return to abandoned homes. Ramadan begins around the 11th of March. Three security sources from host and mediator Egypt said that the warring sides were sticking to demands that had held up an agreement. The mediators have remained in contact with the Israelis despite the absence of an Israeli delegation. Gaza's hunger crisis worsens. Children seen at hospitals. Famine is now looming over the besieged Gaza Strip as aid supplies already sharply since the start of the war have dwindled to barely a trickle over the past month. Whole swaths of the territory are completely cut off from food. Details on the following report.
Two Palestinian toddlers with sunken eyes and emaciated faces, one in a yellow cardigan and the other in a stripy top, were lying side by side on a bed in a Gaza clinic, their thin, bony legs protruding from diapers that looked too big for them. This was the scene on Monday at Al Wada Health Center in Rafah, southern Gaza, where nurse Dia El-Shair said children suffering from malnutrition and from a range of diseases were arriving in unprecedented numbers. The toddler in the yellow cardigan, Ahmed Qanen, weighed 6 kilograms, half of his pre-war body weight, according to his aunt, who was by his side. Nearly 5 months into Israel's aerial ground assault on the Gaza Strip and resulting mass displacement, acute shortages of food have led to what the United Nations is describing as a nutrition crisis, part of a wider humanitarian humanitarian catastrophe. Gaza's health ministry said on Sunday that 15 children had died of malnutrition or dehydration at Kamal Adwan Hospital in Beit Lahia, northern Gaza, the part of the enclave where the lack of food is most extreme. The worsening hunger crisis has intensified criticism of Israel on the world stage, including from U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris, whose country is Israel's staunchest ally. She said on Sunday that people in Gaza were starving, calling on Israel to do more to significantly increase the flow of aid.
Well, to shed more light on this, we have the pleasure to have with us over the phone His Excellency Ambassador Gamal Bayoumi, former Assistant Foreign Minister. Good evening, Your Excellency.
Good evening, how are you?
Your Excellency, now the situation is worsening. Famine is worsening in the Gaza Strip, with more than 15 children have been dead or died from malnutrition. How do you see the situation now?
Very sad story, very sad story. I confess I cannot look anymore to the screen of the television to see those victims. I am so sorry for them. And this proves to the whole world who is supporting the continuation of this war to have a second opinion. The United States refused to, that the Security Council issue a decision to stop the war. I don't understand how a big power like the United States rejects our request to stop the war. Nobody can accept this. And the tragedy is getting more and more. Same time, those donor countries are stopping their aid to the UNRWA, so our children in Gaza cannot find their food even. Egypt, the Emirates, and even the United States, they started to send merchandise and food and so on, and medicine by dropping by air traffic. But this is not enough. It seems that we have to use the landway through Rafah or else in order to reach Gaza with big quantities of food and medicine and whatever they need. This is a real disaster, and I think the whole world wouldn't accept this at all. 152 countries voted in the General Assembly of the United Nations against this. But it has no value because Israel never respects the international law or the decisions taken by the United Nations, or even the agreements which was signed by Israel with Yasser Arafat in 1993 in Oslo. What can we do? But
yes.
I hope that we can support the stand, the resistance, the stay of the Palestinians in their own country, and they will never give up. Yes. This is something which we are really proud of, although we are so sad and you cannot continue this massacre at all. But anyway, this is a secret weapon of the Palestinians, that they will continue living in their land and they will stop any illegal migration of the Jews coming from countries has no relations with this land.
Yes, yes. Yes. So, Your Excellency, Ambassador Bayoumi, now there are relentless efforts from President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi, from Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry, from the Egyptian side, also with the Hamas negotiations here in Cairo for the third day now, in order to reach to a ceasefire or a truce that is going to take 40 days to allow, of course, the entrance of the humanitarian aid and the supplies, and also for the exchange of hostages. So how do you read the situation now?
It is an enormous effort, and really, as you rightly said, our president, on daily basis, he receives phone calls from his counterpart or calling them in order to support the Palestinian cause. Sameh Shukri, I don't know when he goes to his house, he's always out of the country, especially for our foreign policy in general, especially for the Palestinian question and Gaza. And the Egyptian diplomacy is doing the utmost it can do. And I think we make a relatively story of success because we raise awareness everywhere in the world, even with the Jewish communities in the States and in some European countries.
Yes.
So let us continue this, and we hope at the end of the day that the public opinion in every country will stand very strong against these practices.
Yes, yes. I thank you very much for your time. Thank you for your valuable information. Thank you very much, Your Excellency Ambassador Gamal Bayoumi, former Assistant Foreign Minister. Thank you very much for joining us over the phone. Ladies and gentlemen, a short break and I'm going to be back with you. Welcome back. Israeli occupation forces raided the Palestinian administrative capital of Ramallah in the occupied West Bank overnight, killing a 16-year-old in a refugee camp during their biggest such assault into the city in years. Israeli occupation forces also killed a 10-year-old boy in a village of south of Nablus. The Palestinian news agency Wafa reported, citing medical sources, that the boy had been shot in the head by Israeli occupation soldiers. Israeli occupation forces also further detained at least 55 Palestinians in raids across the West Bank overnight. Violence has surged across the West Bank in parallel to the Gaza war, with at least 400 Palestinians killed in clashes with Israeli occupation soldiers and illegal Israeli settlers, and with the occupation military regularly raiding Palestinian areas across the territory. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken called on Hamas on Tuesday to accept an immediate ceasefire with Israel as representatives of the group met with Egyptian and Qatari mediators in Cairo. During his meeting with the Qatari Prime Minister in Washington, Mohammed bin Abdul Rahman Al Thani, Blinken said the two sides had an opportunity for an immediate ceasefire that could bring hostages home, increasing the amount of humanitarian assistance to Palestinians and set conditions for an enduring resolution. Blinken also called on Israel to allow more aid into war-battered Gaza, where warnings have grown of famine, and the United States has restored to aid airdrops. He further called on Israel to open more crossings into Gaza and ensure that aid can reach people in need. For his part, the Qatari premier promised to be persistent to make sure that this deal happens. The International Criminal Court, ICC, has issued arrest warrants for top Russian commanders Sergei Kobylash and Viktor Kokolov over alleged war crimes in Ukraine. The ICC, based in The Hague, said there were responsible grounds to believe that the two suspects were responsible for missile strikes carried out by the forces under the Command Against the Ukrainian Electric Infrastructure from at least 10 October 2022 until at least 9th of March 2023. This is the second set of warrants for the arrest of Russian officials related to the war in Ukraine. Republican front-runner Donald Trump is expected to dominate the nominating contest taking place coast to coast on Super Tuesday, the biggest day of primaries in the 2024 presidential election cycle. 15 states will hold Republican contests, including the two most populous, California and Texas. Details in the following report.
Donald Trump will aim to deliver a knockout blow on Super Tuesday for his lone challenger for the Republican presidential nomination, Nikki Haley, as 15 states hold Republican contests on the biggest voting day of the primary season. Former president, who's dominated the Republican campaign from the start despite his litany of criminal charges, has swept all but one of the early nominating contests, winnowing a sprawling Republican field of candidates down to two in the process. Whilst Trump cannot win enough delegates on Tuesday to formally clinch the nomination, another dominant performance would essentially end any remaining sliver of suspense. All told, Tuesday's contest will award more than one-third of Republican delegates and more than 70% of the number needed to secure the nomination. Third consecutive nomination for Trump would set up a rematch with Democratic President Joe Biden in November's election. Biden's expected to win Tuesday's Democratic contest easily, though activists opposed to Biden's Israel policy are calling on Muslim Americans and progressives to vote uncommitted in Minnesota in protest. Haley, a former U.S. ambassador under Trump, has faced mounting questions about how long she will continue her long-shot campaign, particularly after losing her home state of South Carolina 10 days ago.
North Korea called the ongoing South Korean U.S. military drills a plot to invade the country as it threatened Tuesday to take insufficient responsible military steps in response. The North's warning came a day after the South Korean and U.S. forces kicked off their annual computer simulated command post training and a variety of field exercises for an 11-day run. This year's drills were to involve 48 field exercises, twice the number conducted last year. In a statement carried by state media, the North's defense ministry said it strongly denounces the reckless military drills of the U.S. and South Korea for getting more undisguised in their military threat to a sovereign state in attempt for invading it. Now with the economy news, as the Minister of Petroleum Engineer Tariq Al-Mullah participated in the activities of the extraordinary meeting of the gas exporting countries forum ahead of the summit of head of states and governments in Algeria, in which Al-Mullah delivered Egypt's speech on behalf of President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi. In his speech, Al-Mullah highlighted the importance of the forum to boost cooperation among its member states, reiterating the increasingly vital role of natural gas to realize a just and feasible energy transformation. He also stressed that Egypt is working together with other members of the GECF to secure a safe and sustainable energy future as part of its role to work for the interest of humanity and achieve sustainable development. He said that Egypt has adopted an ambitious plan to convert into clean energy through using natural gas and green hydrogen. Egypt's stock market indices collectively rise on Tuesday closing session, pushed by purchases of local and Arab institutions. The benchmark EGX 30 index went up by 0.4% to exceed 30,668 points. The equal weighted index EGX 70 and the more expanded EGX 100 also gained 0.14% and 0.9% respectively. Britain's Conservative government unveils a pre-election budget that could feature voter-friendly measures, with Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's party badly trailing main opposition party Labour in polls. Huge giveaways are not expected, however, as stumbly high inflation forces are up repayments on state borrowing, undermining the government's ability to stimulate the recession-mired UK economy. Finance Minister Jeremy Hunt is reportedly mulling over a modest reduction in either income tax or in national insurance, which is levied on payrolls to boost Britain's hit by a swinging cost of living crisis. Hunt, who unveils his budget before Parliament, has dampened hopes of major tax cuts and insisted borrowing would not rise any future. Britain is due to vote at a general election this year, with the beleaguered Sunak looking to claw back ground from Labour leader Keir Starmer. Bitcoin hit a record high on Tuesday, fueled by investors pouring money into U.S. spot exchange traded products and the prospect that global interest rates may fall. The world's largest hit a high of $69,202, topping November 2021's all-time peak of $69,000. Investor interest has increased since the Exchange Commission approved 11 spot Bitcoin in late January. It then traded lower and was last at $68,440. The European Union on Tuesday outlined ambitious plans to boost its defense industry as it responds to the threat posed by Russia's war on Ukraine and seeks to wean member nations off an overdependence on the U.S. defense industry. Details in the following report.
Top European Union officials on Tuesday unveiled plans to boost the continent's arms industry, arguing Russia's war in Ukraine showed member countries should increase joint purchases of weapons and devote more spending in European firms. The European Commission, the EU's executive body, proposed spending 1.5 billion euros to give countries incentives to buy jointly from European firms and encourage industry to raise capacity and develop new technologies. Margaret Vestager, a vice president of the Commission, said EU national governments placing orders with favoured companies from their own countries' limited economies of scale created mistrust and prevented competition. Vestager acknowledged 1.5 billion euros was not a lot of money when it comes to the defence industry, but said it could still create incentives to get the EU's 27 national governments, which have responsibility for defence, to work together. The Commission said it wanted to bind Ukraine as closely as possible into its new plans, even though it is not an EU member. Officials also raised the prospect that the EU could use profits from frozen Russian assets to help Ukraine's defense industry or even buy arms for Kyiv, but EU members have yet to agree on how those funds should be used. Alarmed by Russia's war in Ukraine and bellicose rhetoric from Moscow towards the West, EU countries have sharply increased defense spending in years. Much of that money has gone to companies outside Europe. Between the start of the war and June last year, EU states spent more than 100 billion euros on military equipment, 80% outside the EU, with more than 60% going to the United States alone, according to the Commission.
Welcome back. Now with the tourism segment, as Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouri stressed the importance of the health tourism and its role in attracting investment. Addressing the international conference and exhibition of health tourism applications at the new administrative capital, the Premier pointed that tens of millions of people are crossing the borders of their countries every year to receive health care. In his speech, Madbouli said that Egypt started to put a complete vision for health tourism, seeking to be a destination of curative tourism with a number of Egyptian cities that are qualified for this purpose. Madbouli also announced launching the first resort for health tourism in Egypt. He called on all participants to enrich the conference to be a platform for exchanging experiences and work for building a bright future for medical tourism in Egypt. Well, now with the sports news, as Hussein El Shahat from Al Ahli of Egypt became the leading GAF Champions League scorer this season, netting in a 1-0 win over Young Africans of Tanzania. The 31-year-old midfielder struck in the first minute of the second half of Cairo as the record 11-time African champions clinched first place in Group D. A clever pass set Ali Maloul free down the left wing, and cutback was fired past Young Africans goalkeeper Jibril Diarra by El Shahat. It was the fifth goal of the Champions League champion for the Egyptian international, who was also scored the only goal last weekend in an away victory over Madima of Ghana. Defending champions Ahli finished the sixth round mini league phase unbeaten with 12 points. Young Africans and Shabab Belouizdad of Algeria secured 8 each and Madima 4. Ahli football team resumed training on Monday ahead of their clash with their routine rivals Zamalek in the Egypt Cup final in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia on Friday. Al Ahli coach Marcel Kohler delivered a technical lecture for the players ahead of the training. Meanwhile, Zamalek have arrived to the Saudi capital on Monday to prepare for the Cup final. Darwin Núñez headed in a last gasp winner as Premier League leaders Liverpool snatched 3 points with a 1-0 victory over relegation threatened Nottingham Forest at the City Ground on Saturday. Timo Werner's first goal for Tottenham Hotspur sparked 3-1 comeback victory at home against Crystal Palace to revive their top four hopes. Aston Villa substitute Lucas De Gea struck a late winner to thwart Luton Town's second half comeback attempt as the visitors ran out 3-2 winners in the thrilling Premier League clash at Kenilworth Road. Newcastle United returned to winning ways with a 3-0 win over Woolwich Wanderers in the Premier League, thanks to goals from Alexander Isak, Anthony Gordon, and a late strike from Tino Livramento. Thomas Schuwick and Anderson Alvarez scored stoppage time goals. West Ham United defeated Everton 3-1 at Goodison Park in the Premier League on Saturday to keep the home side in relegation trouble. Fulham eased to 3-0 win over Brighton and Hove Albion on Saturday, winning back-to-back Premier League games for only the second time this season. The only draw of the day was witnessed by Chelsea, who fought back to earn a point against Brentford in a 2-2 draw. Arsenal's manager Mikel Arteta said that club's close season signings have added a new dimension to the squad and are helping their team mates reach a higher level. Arteta's remarks came after their 6-0 Premier League win over Sheffield United on Monday. Declan Rice and Kai Havertz signed from West Ham United and Chelsea in the summer were among the scorers as Arsenal matched the biggest Premier League away win with a free scoring display at Bowell Lane. Bayern Munich coach Thomas Tuchel said on Monday his team will need to feel under pressure if they are to deliver a top performance and overturn a 1-0 deficit in today's Champions League round of 16 return home leg against Lazio. The Bavarians are far from their best, having managed only one win in their last 5 games across all competitions, with Tuchel set to leave at the end of the season a year earlier than this contract. They stumbled to a 2-2 draw at Freiburg on Friday to drop 10 points behind leaders Bayer in the Bundesliga. Britain's Katie Boulter won the biggest title of her career, beating Ukraine's Marta Kostyuk 5-7, 6-2, 6-2 to claim the WTA San Diego Open title. Details in the following report.
Unseeded Katie Boulter of England capped a run of upsets to win the San Diego Open singles title with a 5-7, 6-2, 6-2 victory over 6-seeded Marta Kostyuk of Ukraine. A 10-year tour veteran, the 27-year-old Boulter won the second pro singles title with her 5th straight victory over higher-seeded players in the week-long WTA 500 event. As darkness fell early in the match, twice delayed by intermittent showers, both players appeared to struggle whilst adjusting to the unseasonably cool, windy and drizzly conditions with temperatures in the mid-50s. In her San Diego Open debut, Boulter shook off a flurry of early first set unforced errors, initially flustered by Kostyuk's quickness and athleticism, but showing signs of resilience that would later serve her well. Boulter overcame 5 set points before she sent an errant forehand past the baseline to fall 7-5. Undeterred, Boulter found her rhythm en route to winning the second set, which was marked by furious backcourt rallies. About 30 minutes later, Boulter was serving for the match at 5-2 when she struck a cross-court forehand just out of Kostyuk's reach to give her the title. Kostyuk paid tribute to her family in Ukraine after the match. Boulter, who said the cool conditions made her feel at home, was awarded a ceremonial surfboard and not the event's close proximity to the Pacific Ocean. Held at the Barnes Tennis Center, the San Diego Open is a WTA Tour 500 event with a total purse of $922,573 presented by Kempiotica.